myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say
Good evening, welcome to NUFC Matters. It's Thursday night and I'm joined as always by Supermac, Malcolm MacDonald and John Gibson from the Evening Chronicle. Good evening, lads.
Hi, guys. Steve. Hiya, John.
Hiya, my friend.
Good to see you, and as always, plenty to talk about with regard to Newcastle United. But got to speak to you about the FA Cup replays, lads. We've been talking about it off screen, Mal, and this chat about depending on who draws who, and if there's a big club
who's playing in Europe,
it's crazy, Mal, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, it is, because what they're doing is they're actually differentiating one club from another. Everybody's got to go into this kind of competition totally equal, and be treated equally right the way through. So if they play in a game that finishes in a draw, they must play a replay, or you cancel replays throughout the competition. But at the moment they're saying, well, some people will have replays, others won't. We'll decide on each individual club, match, etc. Wrong. Totally wrong.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts, John?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Because, I mean, as far as Newcastle are concerned, if we draw lower division clubs because we're not in Europe, we'll probably go ahead and have replays. But later on in the competition, if we draw a club that is in Europe, then it's got to be a one-off. And if we are playing away from home against a team in Europe and we draw at Man City, but we've got to go in extra time and et cetera, instead of coming to St. James's Park, we'll feel well aggrieved.
Yeah, and then on the final whistle of extra time, if it's still level, I presume it goes immediately to penalties.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. And it also takes the romance out of this competition for smaller clubs. And the FA Cup, for me, is totally based on romance. And the romance comes to us eventually. I mean, Newcastle in the 50s, you couldn't get anything more romantic than that. But put it, something Malcolm will appreciate with me, although it was against Newcastle, if that had happened in the old days, Hereford wouldn't have got a replay against Newcastle at Newcastle if Hereford had been forced to go to extra time and then a penalty kick out, and we had beaten them instead of them getting a replay at Hereford and then winning in front of their own fans, it can take the romance out of the cup. And having been once in charge of owning Gateshead, I mean, my great times were in the FA Cup with Gateshead when we, as a non-league club, would try to play a league club and try to get results. Take the romance away and you're killing it. It's not good news. And in fact, it's absolutely outrageous because Newcastle, early on, if they're playing from lower league teams, will not have replays. But if they get the fourth or fifth round or something and draw Liverpool away or Man City away, then they won't have a replay at St. James's Park because they're playing in Europe.
And John, I remember, albeit it was the League Cup, and when I was managing Fulham, we came out the hat away to Liverpool. So we went up to Anfield and we got a 0-0 draw. We took them back to Craven Cottage and that finished 0-0 after extra time. And then we tossed up in the referee's room as to where we played the third game. And I won. And so we played again at Craven Cottage. All of that would be missed in the way that the FA are wanting to do it. And it was absolutely magical, the whole run. It was fantastic. And we had huge crowds. Everybody just so loved it. There were television cameras coming along to it all. And there would be so much brilliant televised football being missed, the wonderful atmosphere within the stadium.
Absolutely.
And it's not treating everybody equally. And you must be treated equally in a competition.
Yeah, there's no quite. I mean, it is an absolute joke, and the only way that I will be happy with it is if it takes us to Wembley, because we play Manchester City at Newcastle and they're forced to continue at Newcastle and we beat them on penalties and go to Wembley. Then I'll say it's the greatest decision the FA have ever made in their whole life. But outside of that, it's absolute dross.
Yes, yeah. I see your point.
Lads, last week, I hate to remind you, but we predicted 3-0, 4-0,
4-0,
and 5-0.
We did.
And ultimately, when me and Malcolm stood at the Dog and Parrot last week, I said to him, is this a potential banana skin? And he said, I hope not. It was a potential banana skin, Malcolm. And 1-1 at the end of the day, looking at the stats, 73% possession, 20 shots on goal, 8 on target. One of them was a goal, which was a penalty. But Newcastle United, ultimately, Malcolm, did enough to win, I guess. But they didn't. It was a 1-1 draw against a team we were hoping to get 3 points against.
And in all honesty, Steve, I'm not so sure that Newcastle did enough to actually win. And I'll tell you for why. In the first half, Newcastle United had 66% of possession. Bournemouth had only half of that. But Newcastle, for all that possession, they never had a shot until Trippier in the 40th minute hit the post with a free kick. That was the first that worked the goalkeeper, that caused any danger on the Bournemouth goal. Well, if you're going to play like that, you might as well take the goals out off the pitch, because they're not required, for heaven's sake. Newcastle didn't shoot. And if you don't shoot, you do not win football matches. Albeit, I know that last 5 minutes in the first half, it was all rather frantic and exciting, and Newcastle very nearly scored. They had another 3 or 4 shots in that 5 minutes. But that's just not good enough, considering the whole 45. And then when they came out for the second half, they continued as they had started in the first half. And they just didn't even look as if they were going to get efforts on target, and never looked like they were going to score. For heaven's sake, there were no what I would call misses, glaring misses, or great saves by the goalkeeper. What the hell is this side doing? That for all that possession, you have to get forward and you have to get crosses into the box. You have to get shots on goal. Otherwise, you're just going to stay continually scoreless. And even I thought Eddie Howe after the game, it's the most critical I've heard him speak of the side post-match.
Yeah. John, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, extremely disappointed. We'd all expected a goal feast, and to a certain extent, we had every reason to. Bournemouth had shipped goals left, right, and centre this season. What I thought it was Newcastle's poorest performance of the season. Yes, they played indifferently, perhaps, at Brighton, but this was at home, for goodness sake. And Brighton are up the top end of the table and Bournemouth on. Now, what we did was we played the whole of the game. Malcolm was absolutely correct. We played the whole of the game in front of their back five. We never got beyond them. We never got round them. We played in front of them. Now they're comfortable with that. They're playing away from home. They've been shopping goals. They'll throw us the ball and say, as long as you want to play in front of our 5, you can have the ball. You carry on, not a problem. And that is what we did. And we ran out of ideas. We didn't have any ideas. And my feeling on the whole thing is, when I look at it, what is hugely disappointing for me is that we have just played back-to-back Crystal Palace and Bournemouth at home and failed to beat either of them. Not only have we failed to beat either of them, but we have failed to score against either of them from open play. Our only goal in those 2 games was a penalty. We have failed to score at home from open play. Now, I hasten to add, I need to say this because I sound very critical of Newcastle. In that game, I am critical, but I'm not critical over the whole picture because, I'm not going to go from waving the flag and saying wonderful Newcastle and what has been achieved in the last year since the takeover is truly magnificent, then start sounding doom and gloom. But to be realistic, I look at the record. 1-5-1 is the record. Now, that immediately tells you there's too many draws because we've won 1 out of 7, albeit we've only lost 1 out of 7. Now, let us look at those draws. We got 5 draws. Manchester City was a magnificent draw. 3-3, great game. We were 3-1 up. They're from a different planet to most teams in the Premier League. That was absolute huge plus. But our other 4 draws are against Brighton, Wolves, Crystal Palace and Bournemouth. There is not a Champions League side in there. They are sides that you can beat. And
should beat.
We have managed a couple of points against, say, a couple of extra points each against Palace and Bournemouth. Wolves, who were very average, we should be on a lot better off than we are. And it is disappointing. And the one thing that's disappointing, guys, and we've got to put this right, look at it this way. We've put pressure on ourselves because if we go the next 3 games, if we don't get a win in those, and I'm not suggesting we won't, but if we don't, it's 1 win out of 10. That then looks totally different ballgame. And those 3 games are Fulham away, who are 3 points ahead of us, and so on, easy. Mitrovic. It's Brentford at home. They're doing okay. They're all right. Tony. And then it's Manchester United away. Now, if we don't get a win in them, it's 1 win out of 10, then it doesn't look good. But I've got to, having said all that, I've got to say the strides we have made in the year, and the takeover anniversary is not until October next month, has been phenomenal. And I'm not knocking that whatsoever. We've hit a little bump in the road, but we've got to go on. And you know what the little bump in the road's told me, guys? That this squad isn't deep enough. Because what has happened with Bruno out until he come back, and naturally he was rusty, and Wilson out and Maxi out, our good bench players started in the team. They aren't on the bench anymore. They started in the team. So that when we went and looked at our bench to change things, it was very, very thin. The squad is still thin and needs a little look at in January, because once we are okay when we've got our best team out. That's often the case with clubs. When we have Wilson available and Maxi available and Bruno right up 100%, we are okay. Once we get injuries like that, we're not okay.
Is there a problem, Malcolm? Do you think with injury?
Sorry,
I'm going to
Steve,
say, Mal, do you think there's a problem with the injuries that we're getting? Because Steve Middlemas mentioned we seem to be getting a lot of injuries.
Well, yes, we are, I suppose. Yes, and I think as a manager and coaches should and the physios they should be in discussion as to why this is happening, because I'm not seeing dangerous challenges to cause them. So there is a problem there. But also, what I was going to just add on to what John was saying, that I saw, and despite all the subs that came on later in the game, what I saw was Newcastle starting with plan A, and there was never any change of personnel,
No.
but there was no tactical change whatsoever to seek to cause more danger in the penalty area. Things just weren't happening in the penalty area, for heaven's sake. And it stayed plan A all the way to the final whistle. And there was just a complete and utter lack of imagination as to how Newcastle could go and beat Bournemouth. And for heaven's sake, all right, so Bournemouth, they had a way of playing, and they can say, but it was very successful. Yeah, but come on. We should actually be passing through them, and we never look to pass through them. We should be running through them. We never look to run through them. We play okay until we get to the last third, within sight of the penalty area, and it just all comes to a halt. For example, Almiron, out on the right wing, didn't get a cross in, didn't get a shot in. Fraser, out on the left wing, didn't get a cross in, didn't get a shot in. And you think, well, what are they doing there? How are they playing game after game if they, against Bournemouth, can't get a cross into the box to give somebody a chance, can't get a shot on goal? So there's just no danger coming from anywhere. Also, I think that what we saw against Bournemouth was Isak being played totally in the wrong position. What he was trying to play was how Wilson plays, through the middle, back to goal, and then he'll spin and go. But he's happy to have the ball played into his feet. He'll knock it off and then spin and go. Isak, he doesn't play with his back to goal, and he needs to be playing off of Wilson, and so that he's sort of going around the arc in front of Wilson, but facing goal all the while, and then things might really spark. But at the moment, it's just not sparking up front in any way whatsoever. And I just hope that Eddie Howe is going to be prepared to play two up front as soon as Wilson is fit, and let Isak go left and right of Wilson, and become the second man going into the box. So it for me was without imagination, Newcastle's performance, and you always need to have that thought and that imagination just to tweak things, just to change things. I didn't see players looking to change it, even with Trippier. Now, Trippier is terrific at communication, and I didn't really see him just trying to correct or perfect the movement of other players around him, and it was all so run of the mill, with no real thought process to look to get the best out of Newcastle. And okay, Bournemouth, yes, they were organised, but the art of playing football, particularly at that level, is breaking down that organisation. And I didn't see anybody really wanting to break Bournemouth down. And we were happy to just play in front of them. I didn't. Do you recall at all in the whole of that 90 odd minutes somebody looking to take a Bournemouth defender on? And okay, maybe getting dispossessed, but did you see anybody actually take a defender on? Because I don't recall it.
No, it was a game that was lackluster because they came to close us down. But you are 100% right. There was lack of creativity. Almiron never got one cross in, and Ryan Fraser, who set up 2 goals last night, John, didn't really put a cross in that was worthy of a centre forward's finish. So he can do it for Scotland, he couldn't do it for Newcastle. But it's down to formations, John. I don't want to be too harsh on players individually, John. I don't think it's fair because Newcastle did have 20 shots. They had 8 on target. We scored a goal. I think we have to take it as a compliment the way that Crystal Palace and Bournemouth came to Newcastle and set up, John. It shows how far we've come in a short space of time. People are coming to St James's Park now to close us down rather than to attack us and try and take us on.
I take that point absolutely, and that is true, and it is a compliment to what we've done. But the next step you always take is that you address that situation and you do something about it. Now, Newcastle have quite rightly done something about, first things first, the defence, which was letting in 4 and 5 goals in the Ashley Bruce era. We brought in on block a full defence. We brought in Pope, Trippier, Botman, Byrne, and Target. That's 4 defenders and a goalkeeper. And we have, to a certain extent, locked that door. Yes, we let a goal in. That happens. We rarely let 2 in or more unless we're playing Man City. So that's taken care of. Bruno has done a terrific job in opening up in the inventiveness of the midfield. But our the centre third and the forward third is still a work in progress. We have, when Bruno's been out of the side, and I really take the match against Bournemouth as that, because he wasn't at his best, because he wasn't match sharp. And you take our front guys, and you've got Maxi out, and you've got Wilson out. I mean, if we pick our front 3, Wilson and Maxi will be 2 of them. Then it's Almiron or it's Isaac, now he's here, or whoever. But that's 2 of the front 3 out. You look at midfield, you would go Joe Linton, Bruno. Bruno wasn't firing, and one other. We haven't got the creativity in the middle of the park, and we haven't got the cutting edge up top. But if we can get that creativity in the middle of the park, and by the way, James Maddison, I'll come back to that, sign him in January, it's a whole new ball game, baby. Don't you worry about that. It's a whole new game then. But we've got to wait for that. And while we wait for that, and I know it couldn't be done on Saturday because he was injured, please give Elliot Anderson a chance in the middle of the park, because I think he can create. And I feel there's a little bit of labouring when we have Willock and Longstaff.
Yeah.
If Bruno's fit for the next game at Fulham, I would go Bruno, Joe Linton, and Anderson. And of course, we need Bruno to be fit, who at the moment's got a knock where he is, and we need Anderson to be fit, who at the moment's got a knock. He wasn't available against Bournemouth, and he pulled out of the Scotland under 21 squad. We need them to be fit.
Sure, and he's been given a new contract, hasn't he?
Yes, he has, which is thoroughly deserved.
Yeah, thoroughly deserved. Yes.
You don't want another Lee Clark's son situation, do you? Where the best young players feel have got to disappear to have any sort of future.
Yeah.
Newcastle's a new ball game now, and that isn't happening. and Elliot Anderson will be terrific. But maybe you see, I'm a great believer that Isaac he is not a replacement for Wilson when Wilson's injured because he doesn't play the Wilson way. He is not an orthodox through the middle centre forward. He is a link player as well as a finisher. He likes to link play. He likes to join in. He likes to drift right. He likes to drift left. He doesn't play between the posts exclusively in the way that Wilson will do. And therefore, I think when far from can the two of them play together, which was the discussion all Newcastle fans had the day he signed, I think that not only can they play together, but they will both benefit by playing together, because Wilson will play orthodox through the middle between the posts, centre forward who finishes. Isaac will play slightly off him, wide of him, but be a wide player who can finish. We haven't got a wide player who finishes. And if Maxi goes on the other side and produces anything like he did in his last two games, he ran the show against Manchester City and he was poor at Wolves, but scored a wonderful, wonderful equaliser. So if he does his business one side, Isaac does his business the other side, and Wilson goes through the middle, and if we could get that on the park at Fulham and put Anderson in behind him alongside Bruno and Joe Linton, it can be a different ballgame.
Can be, 100%. Lots of comments coming in. Post your questions if you've got any into the chat. We will have a quick ad break now, and we will be back very shortly. Big thank you to skipsandbins.com, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website skipsandbins.com, easy contract, free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks to Darren Baldwin Funerals, independent funeral directors. You can find them at 304 Old Durham Road, Gateshead. Telephone 0191 478 273, or email Darren at darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk, or go to the website darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk. Thanks to Garden of Healing Dispensary, CBD hemp and cannabinoid specialists. You can find them at thegohd.com. And thanks to 3 Property, who specialise in sourcing investment properties for their clients who are looking to invest in the Northeast. They offer a full in-house service from sourcing the deals to managing the properties for you. They've done over 100 plus deals in the past 12 months for clients all over the UK. Give the guys a follow on Instagram, matty.patter_northeast property and phil.reed_northeast property, or email phil@3property.co.uk if you're interested in getting a good property deal. Thanks also to Mr. Vicky's Sauces. They are handmade in Cumbria. You can find them at mrvickys.co.uk or give them a call on 01768 210 102. Thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the video technology side of things. And thanks to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Walls and Newcastle, and the guys who run our website, NUFCmatters.com. If you want to subscribe to the channel, hit the NUFC Matters logo in the bottom right-hand corner and you can subscribe for free. Hit the thumb up underneath the video to like it. It does us a big favour. And click share to share to your social media, such as Facebook and Twitter. Maybe add it to a Newcastle United group. You can also make a donation. Just hit the thanks button underneath if you're enjoying the content and you want to share something with me or the people on the channel. And you can also click join, which means that you commit to maybe a monthly membership, or you can become a cult member. How do you do that? Well, you go to the website, nufcmatters.com, and you search for membership. What do you get for your £25 one-off payment? You get a cup, a pen, a membership card, and a scarf, and entry into the monthly draw. We also have a smart code. There you go, the QR code there. If you put your smartphone over it, it'll take you straight to the website and you can get involved in a cult membership pack today. We also give you something for nothing. If you subscribe to the show, then email john@nufcmatters.com and get your free car window sticker now. We also support the food bank on here. NUFC Fans Food Bank.co.uk is the Matchday Bucket website. You just need to go there and you can make a virtual donation. Don't forget, during the season on match days, we're at the Dog and Parrot with Supermac, pre-match and post-match. And we're at Pumphrey's, John Anderson and John Gibson, pre-match only. Also got the Takeover anniversary party coming up at the Irish Centre. Tickets are £2 on the door, and you can get your tickets for that from NUFCmatters.com. And Supermac will be at the Terrace Club in Seaton Delaval, Friday the 11th of November. Tickets are a tenner, table is £650, and you can get those tickets from 0191 237 0133. Elliot Anderson, Malcolm. A young protege at Newcastle United who is doing well. New contract. Great news.
Yes. I'd like to see more of him playing, though.
Yeah.
I think when he came on a couple of matches back, it was Crystal Palace, wasn't it, if memory serves me?
Yeah.
And he was out on the left wing, but he did some delightful little things on the ball, taking players on, and that's the one thing that's just not happening at the moment in the side. That Newcastle United players aren't running at defenders, looking to commit them, get beyond them, and then see if there's a shot on or a cross or whatever. And so before the positive things are knocked out of him, I want to see him actually given that run in the side in his best position, because I think that a manager has got to do a young lad the right thing and play him in his very best position where he can give of his best, rather than sort of sticking him out wide and sort of letting him feel his way. Give him a chance to play in his best position and show you what you're capable of doing. And what I found, I was always prepared when managing. I was always prepared to give youngsters that chance, but I will play them in their best position, and I would give them 6 matches so that they could pick up on the speed of the game, the pace of the game, and because it's a quite different atmosphere and style of football to play in than what they've been used to, and so give them that chance, and I will play them for 6 games. I would then take them out because they can get a bit exhausted. Take them out, give them a game or 2 just to let everything settle in their head, but then put them back in, and they used to look absolutely terrific that second time around. They might have done ever so well in the first part, but the second part, usually they came out, they were absolutely terrific. And I think that this lad, Elliot Anderson, he's got to be given that opportunity. Give him half a dozen games in his best position. Why not partner him with Bruno in the middle of the park? And Bruno behind him, and let's see what Anderson can do. I'd love to see somebody in midfield just running at the opposition. See what they can do. See if they can start the split, because Wilson and Isak, they haven't been experiencing that, and then they can make their runs and with space. That gives somebody running through Elliot Anderson, hopefully, it gives them that opportunity to continue the run or knock it off, play a 1-2 even, but it's movement that starts to make space and what have you. And at the moment, Newcastle, they don't really move that much. It's all done very stationary, and whatever movement there is, it's without purpose.
What's your thoughts on Elliot Anderson signing a new contract, John?
Terrific, because And I noticed, which I was rather pleased, Dan Ashworth come out and put some quotes behind this new contract, because he was a great believer at Brighton in clearing a pathway towards the first team for academy players, those of quality, and he was backing this. That is terrific for us, because the lad has got a real chance. There's absolutely no question about that. I'm convinced that he might even have started against Bournemouth had he been available, and instead of having a knock. He is long overdue, and I would like to see him get his chance either at Fulham or home to Brentford, because both those matches are a bit like the Bournemouth match. It would give him a real chance before you go to Manchester United. I'm not meaning that's impossible, because when you've got quality, it isn't impossible. Nothing is impossible. It's interesting that he's thinking about whether to switch from Scotland to England, because he hasn't played in competitive games as yet. That can happen. Declan Rice, as you know, switched from Ireland to England before, and that could happen with Anderson. That would be a huge loss to Steve Clarke, our old coach. If he lost a talent like Anderson out of the Scotland squad, the future Scotland first team squad, it would be a mammoth blow. But the lad is naturally going to think, if I'm good, and he'll believe he is good, and I believe he is good, perhaps I've got an England future, never mind the Scotland future, where there's much.
We've lost John. He's gone into the ether. He's back. Are you back, John? Go on.
Yes. Was I off there?
You were off, but you're back. You were just saying if he thought he was good.
If he thought he was good, and he was good enough to go and play for England rather than Scotland, where there's much more opportunity perhaps to go on and win things, you would want to look at that the way that Declan Rice went to England, having been with Ireland. But it would be a huge blow to Steve Clarke. There's absolutely no question about that. He qualifies for Scotland, I think, through grandparents on dad's side. He obviously qualifies for England, but not just his family, but he was born in England. But really, I'm not concerned with which country he goes and plays for. I'm just concerned that he plays for Newcastle United. And that's what this contract is telling us is going to happen. And I think the boy has got a terrific chance. I'm apprehensive, because I beat his gong so flipping much, I'm almost making him the Maradona that Joey Barton called him at Bristol Rovers, and I don't want to do that to the kid, because you don't want to put extra pressure on him. So the sooner he gets a start and gets into his proper life, the better, because the more I keep banging the gong, the more there can be pressure on him to go out there and flick it up his trouser leg. But I think he's got a real chance. He needs that breakthrough, and we need that inspiration at the moment. If we can get injuries to clear up, and that's injuries to Anderson, injury to Bruno, an injury to Isaac, and they could all clear up, and the injury to Callum Wilson clear up, which I firmly believe will clear up before Fulham. If we can go down to Fulham with Wilson back in the side, Isaac out wide, and Bruno, Joe Linton, and Anderson in midfield, then you've got a real chance to get that win, which is proven to be elusive at the moment.
Absolutely, John. Yeah, I would fully agree on that.
Yeah, I've got to ask you about the interview this week, Malcolm, with Rafa Benitez. We haven't heard a great deal from Rafa since his departure from Everton, but he came out and gave us a few sound bites about his time at Newcastle and other clubs, it has to be said. Clearly looking for a new position in the Premier League, perhaps. There could be a couple of vacancies, maybe Leicester, West Ham. But yeah, it was interesting to hear what he had to say. Nothing surprised me about what he said about Newcastle. You know, he was very polite, very honest.
And diplomatic.
And diplomatic. That is exactly the word. Go on, Mal. What did you make of that interview?
Well, I thought it was at the height of diplomacy. I really do. That he is he's a real clever fox of a man. He knows just how to play things. The interview was to impress chairmen who are considering changing manager.
100%.
Yeah.
And listen, I've never been in the game. You've been in the game. And even as a supporter, and I'm 50 now, I've seen this many a time. Mal, I know what that was all about. It was about putting yourself in the shop window.
Yes.
Wasn't it?
Yeah, it certainly was. And because he's been stuck over in China, hasn't he?
And then he come back to Everton. Of all places,
yeah, then he
come back
came
to
back to
Everton.
Everton. Yeah.
But I tell you what, if you've
I
been
wouldn't
in
think he
Liverpool,
wants to go back to China, is what I was going to say.
if you've been a Liverpool manager, you don't need China. If you go to Everton, good God, have you got a
I mean,
death
John,
wish?
that was. I mean,
That was
listen,
crazy.
we all know 100% that this manager was hoping and waiting for the takeover at Newcastle. It just didn't happen when he was hoping it was going to happen.
It was.
He was forced into that. He was forced into another job opportunity. I mean, it's all about timing. We've ended up with Eddie Howe. We're happy we've got Eddie Howe, but Rafa was the one who was destined to take over, wasn't he?
Oh, there's no question about that. I think in the end, he ran out of faith that the Premier League would allow it to happen, and therefore went off and took another job. Now, we've gone down a different path. I loved Rafa when he was here, but I like what Eddie Howe's doing here. And Eddie Howe is a bit more front foot than Rafa is, so I'm quite happy with where we are. Rafa is now pitching. He's a shrewd cookie. He's now looking at the situation. He's pitching Leicester. He's pitching West Ham. The trouble with Leicester is that they're in the mess they're in because they're so skint all of a sudden, and they've had to sell Fofana, the young centre half. They've had to let Schmeichel, the goalkeeper, go, etc., etc. The Maddison in Tielemans, whether we like it or not, is not as committed to Leicester as they once were because they see it as a sinking ship, and Rodgers is going down with the sinking ship. The message I'm getting out of Leicester is they can't afford to sack him because it'll cost them about 10 million. It'll cost them about 10 million to sack him, which is exactly why he won't walk. You wouldn't walk if you're going to get 10 million.
Yeah. And
it's one of them situations, Malcolm, isn't it, where he won't walk because he wants dough,
yes,
and the club can't afford to sack him. So what happens next? But under normal circumstances, Brendan would probably be out. Moyes, who was seen as a superstar over the last 2 years, resurrecting West Ham from a nothing to a European top 7 side, is all of a sudden back to Manchester United and Sunderland. And is this, is he shot? Is he whatever? That is how cruel the game is, isn't it? That's why I'm saying don't let Newcastle go 1 win out of 10. It's amazing. The platitudes, the wonderful Leicester publicity of the last 4 or 5 years, the wonderful West Ham publicity of the last 2 or 3 years as they rose from the ashes and went into Europe and went into the top 7 and kept hold of Declan Rice, and everything's wonderful. And all of a sudden this season, for both of them, it's not wonderful. That is what football is all about. And that is how precarious football can be. And by the way, how many managers out there would love the Newcastle run to go on and be sitting touting for this job? Would be an absolute disgrace because Howe has been absolutely magnificent, deserves our full support, deserves respect and not be disrespected. But how many people would be sitting out there like vultures, the same as they're sitting outside of Leicester and West Ham now? That is the name of football. That is the game of football. It can be ruthless, and well, it isn't can be, it is ruthless and can be horrible at times. But that is not the Newcastle United situation, but that is certainly the Leicester and West Ham situation.
Yeah.
And that's surprising from last season or the season before, isn't it?
Well, isn't it? Yes. And in the Leicester situation, that there sat the manager looking at all the other clubs spending tens upon tens of millions of pounds improving their sides, and he's just sitting there, no money to spend whatsoever, pressure on him to sell players to bring money in. And well, he must have known then that there was only one way that Leicester were going to go this season. And so nothing will have come as a surprise to Brendan Rodgers.
Because what it does, Malcolm, and you know, you've been inside of clubs as a player and you've been inside of clubs as a manager. What it does, it's not only you can't buy players, it's not only that Fofana is going to be sold and Schmeichel's got to get off the wage bill, it's what it then does to your good players like Maddison,
morale,
like
generally.
Tielemans. You know, maybe he's not Vardy, because at this stage of his life, Vardy is not going to get a big transfer to one of the huge clubs because of his age.
37, isn't he?
Right, but Tielemans and Maddison, you can't tell me they're firing on all cylinders and as optimistic as they were a couple of seasons ago.
Well,
life is tough for them. They might even be looking towards January and saying, is there a parachute there?
Sure. Well, that was one of the things that really did surprise me, where there was. It appeared that Newcastle was showing huge interest in Maddison, had actually spoken to Leicester, and yet Maddison didn't seem as if he really wanted to make the move.
Yeah, he did. He did, Malcolm. He was dying to come to Newcastle.
Was he really?
Yeah, he was.
Because I was getting the impression that wasn't the case, John.
No, he was dying to come to Newcastle.
Then why didn't it happen?
But what Leicester decided, and the deal with Rodgers, Rodgers is saying, if we've got to have any chance, we can't have a fire sale of all our top players because we're going to be relegated. I accept that we're going to have to sell one, but we must hold on to the others. And the one they sold was Fofana for 20 million or whatever it was to Chelsea. But then we hold on to Tielemans and Maddison. This is from the manager and the club's point of view, not from the players' point of view.
Okay, well then why didn't Newcastle, because I understand they are owed £12 million for the transfer of Perez. Yeah,
that's right. But
why didn't Newcastle put the pressure on Leicester to say, okay, well, if Maddison's not available, we want our 12 million?
Because it's already agreed that they'll get it in stages set when the transfer took place, and Leicester have met those agreements that if they're paid every 9 months or a year or whatever, the stages were agreed on the transfer deal, and Leicester haven't reneged on them and don't have to bring them forward, Malcolm. It was agreed between the two clubs. They don't have to bring them forward. Newcastle will pressurize them and say, look, we'll do it, but they don't have to. Unless they renege on one of the payments, of course, which they haven't.
But nevertheless, Newcastle, that they could have got a massive debt out of the way for Leicester.
Oh, but Leicester decided they could afford one. Chelsea probably paid over the odds for Fofana.
Yes.
But it was the only way they could get him.
I'm pretty sure they did. Yeah.
It's the only way they could get him. And once that happened, that closed the door on Maddison and Tielemans. And by the way, don't think they're pleased about that, because they're not.
Yano says, if Maddison is so good, how come Southgate's picked a crocked Phillips, then brought in a just back from injury Henderson? I keep singing the same tune, but Maddison is a bad egg. We don't need him.
Well, yeah, I can see where the guy's coming from, but it's not like that, is it? The position, you see, we say they're all midfielders. No, they're not. Phillips is a defensive midfielder. Maddison's an offensive midfielder. You wouldn't replace Phillips with Maddison in a squad.
No.
Because because Phillips is a defending midfielder.
Sure, he's a Bruno type player, isn't he?
Right. So they are different positions. So that doesn't tell them what's happening. And by the way, when we say, Maddison, just because he doesn't get picked by Gareth Southgate, who may not find him, is all of a sudden a bad egg and all that. Everybody's a handful. Terry Abbott was a handful to handle. Joey Barton was a handful to handle. Players are a handful to handle. Maxie's a handful to handle. But if
I was a handful on a Sunday.
Well, I know you're still a handful, you mate. But, everybody's a handful. But if they're worth it, they're worth handling, aren't they? There's not a team of Cliff Richards. There's not a team of Wizard of Oz going down the yellow brick road. I mean, everybody has got problems, have got different type of personalities. Managers handle those. If they're good enough, you can handle them. Joe Harvey handled 1 million players who were a different kettle of fish. A fella sitting in the middle had to be looked after pretty tough because he knew he's going rate. Everybody is not easy to handle. You know who's easy to handle? A player who can't play.
Yeah.
Because he's grateful. You know who's not easy to handle? A player that can play because he knows he can play.
Okay, here we are. International break, sitting in September. Newcastle United, 10th in the Premier League. Played 7, won 1, drawn 5, lost 1, scored 8, conceded 7, plus 1 goal difference, 8 points. Malcolm, is that a good start to the season?
It's a very good and a very bad start. The good is the loss column. We've only lost 1, and even then, I felt that I felt that the referee was very naughty in the way that he added so much time on for Liverpool to score so deep into added time. But what is concerning me is a lack of causing danger to the opposing goal, and I've always believed that if you're going to score goals, if you're going to win, you've got to be crashing shots in from the first moment to the last in a game. You've got to be looking first and foremost to get a shot in. If it's not on, okay, then you can pass. But think, I've got to get a shot in. I've got to get a shot in. And I don't think the players are thinking that way at all. I'm seeing them too happy to go across, rather than just suddenly look to change direction and get in to take a player on. And it really is frustrating me. And that the players haven't got it in their heads that the number one priority is to score goals. And what you finish up with is a whole load of draws and not enough wins. That's through lack of goals.
John, apart from that, we are only 1 point behind Liverpool, 2 points behind Chelsea, and 4 points behind Manchester United. So,
but we're also 3 points behind Fulham, which is the other side. Is the other side of the coin. No, what I would say on the start of the season, it's been disappointing in the progress of the club. The signings were made in January, the signings were made in the summer. We honestly thought we would win more than one of the first 7 games. And I think the owners thought that. I think Howe thought that. And I think the players thought that. I think that's without a shadow of doubt. And as I mentioned, outside of Man City, drawn with Brighton, Wolves, Palace and Bournemouth is not good. We can get more points than that. Having said that, I wish to stress that before we sound all negative, before we sound all Ashley and Bruce, let us remember how far we've come in 1 year. The strides we have made in 1 year from where we are to where we are now, where we were to where we are now, is quite amazing.
Yes.
And it's wonderful and has given me great hope. One of the things that's been against us is VAR. I know that VAR got us the draw, if you like, with Bournemouth, because it was only when he went over and VAR intervened and he went over and looked at the pitch side monitor that we got the penalty. But VAR before that had been horrendous with us. But I want to take that out of the equation. We have made massive strides. There's absolutely no question about that. But while we are grateful for that and ought to be grateful for that, it does not mean that we can't be disappointed at iffy performances that come along. And we have every right to be disappointed with Palace and even more so with Bournemouth. But I want to stress that, in my opinion, this club's going in the right direction. Let us not fall into the doom and gloom of the Bruce and Ashley era, because we're a million miles from that. We are going in the right direction. There's going to be little bumps in the road. The bumps in the road are Palace. We could have won 1-0 if VAR had given us the goal that was ours.
Yes.
Wolves, we have played. Take Bournemouth out, we have played well this season in most games. We've dominated, as Malcolm said, we've dominated possession, except we haven't been able to turn them into goals. Because at this moment, we haven't got a regular goal scorer outside of Callum Wilson, who we don't see enough. We have got to find an answer in the final third of the pitch. We've spent 85 million on two centre forwards. For me, Wood is not Premier League class, and Isaac is not a traditional centre forward. He will be a good player. We have got to keep supporting Isaac. We have got to support him because the kid can play. He scored a terrific goal at Liverpool. He's got good feet. He's got football intelligence. He will be a good player. We do not get on his back. He's got a great chance. But do not expect him to be a Haaland through the middle. Don't expect him to be a Zizou, the guy at Arsenal, because he doesn't play straight through the middle like he did. That's why he left Man City, because he was getting shoved out wide. He is not a Callum Wilson. He is a different sort of player. We need to buy another centre forward in January to help this team for when Callum Wilson's out. I mean, orthodox between the posts centre forward. But let us not get on Isaac's back. And I'm not saying no Newcastle fans are. Let's not go down that road.
No,
let's go down
agreed,
that road.
John.
The kid's got a great chance. He can play. I look at him. You know what? I look at him, and what do I think? I think diamonds can be polished. I think he's a diamond and he can be polished. I think battering rams are battering rams, and I might be talking about Chris Wood.
Yay! Well, you know what, John? What we've started to do on this show is we've started to use parts of the show to promote it. And you complimenting Chris Wood is what we're going to use on this one. Diamonds can be polished.
Yeah, but he's not the diamond. Isaac's a diamond.
No.
He's the battering ram. He's the battering ram, and you can't polish battering rams, pal.
I'll edit that and make sure that people knew that you were saying Chris Wood. Malcolm, are you agreeing?
John's absolutely right about Isaac, that he's got to be played in the best way to play him. He needs a centre forward who's happy to play with his back to goal and get turned and get into the box and finish. And Isaac will play all the way around either side and happy to go wide and then come in to the area. So, yes, I agree. Wood, I think everybody knows my feelings about Wood.
Well, we'll leave it there. We'll leave the last word to Paul Patterson. He says you can't polish a turd, and on those words, we've got to cut the show short because I
must use that in the Chronicle tomorrow, pal.
You can use that in the Chronicle tomorrow, but John, don't forget, John, we were going to do 7 till 8, but Malcolm's on a promise, so we've got to finish early. I'm not sure what being on a promise means. I'm too young.
I think the promise was that his dinner will be cold if he doesn't finish.
Something like that, yeah. Or the dinner's in the dog.
I'm too young to understand what being on a promise means, and I'm going to call it. I'm going to call that over there before you end up in the news of the world, lads. I look forward to seeing you next Thursday. Take care, lads.
All my fun, Steve.
Lovely to see you, boys. Take care. I hope your promise is worth it, big man.
Hey.
See you.